Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon to our Warning Decision Storm of the Month. This is about a storm, the February 25th, 2013 West Texas blizzard, a coming of age of one young forecaster. Presented to you by Jonathan Guzman, who happens to be at Jackson, Kentucky now. Next slide, please.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. I want to start off, give a little outline. This might be a little different format than you see in say in another presentation, but to give you kind of an idea on this, building me up more so as a young forecaster and the personal experiences that went with this, I'm going to kind of run through an outline here. I'm going to start off with just a personal and background kind of narrative of this event across West Texas, and then get into some of the staff and public impacts and some of the lessons learned overall, and then tie that in to what helped me to really learn a lot from this event and become a stronger and more effective forecaster in the Weather Service. And then go into some learning points that really stuck deep to me. And then we'll look at a little bit of the data and verification, just kind of how this blizzard event played out, and then wrap it up with some main takeaways that I got from this event about 4 years ago. So just kind of briefly summarizing this, it certainly was a significant weather event on the Texas South Plains. And then for me, really being my first large-scale winter weather event I had ever worked, I started as a sketch student in Morristown, Tennessee, and worked some hours as a student at Valparaiso University with the Chicago Romeoville office, but never really worked a large-scale winter weather event. And of course, starting as a meteorologist intern in Melbourne, Florida, didn't really have winter impacts more than an occasional freeze here and there. So kind of getting more on the area, Lubbock across the South Plains of West Texas, it's right underneath the Panhandle, for those of you that might not be familiar. And Lubbock's right here where cursor's over. But there actually is a pretty steep contrast in terrain. Most people think the South Plains, West Texas, you think the Caprock and Flat. Well, if you go from the rolling plains just east, a couple hundred miles east of Lubbock, you start about 1,500 feet elevation, and you climb gradually off to the northwest, say up here in Palmer County, where you've got about 4,400 to 4,500 feet in elevation. So it does provide some challenges in terms of, especially in terms of winter weather and freezing levels and whatnot. And then, of course, being right lee of the Rockies, you've got the dynamic storm systems, cyclogenesis forming there out of the central and southern Rockies. And then Lubbock averages right around 8 inches of snow per winter season, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. But certainly when it does happen, people are well more versed out there in terms of severe convective storms, high wind, and large hail than they are winter weather. So again, I'm going to go over some of the public impacts to give you some background on the event, and then we'll tie this into what I was really able to take out of it as a forecaster. And being fairly new to the area, I'd only been in Lubbock for about half a year at this point. So you can see here in the images on the right, these are from the morning of February 25th. It was a Monday morning. You see roads being nearly impassable during the height of the storm, and a lot of the roadways out in West Texas run north, south, east, west. So we had north winds that day, which just wreaked havoc basically on any, especially on any east-west oriented roadway. And then drifts were several feet high. You see their visibilities. We'll look at it a little later. We're below a quarter mile for a good chunk of the later morning and early afternoon. So unfortunately, several people didn't take the storm seriously. So we did have several stranded motorists and problems arising from that, and first responders attempting to get to them. And the northerly winds I alluded to there gusted up to 70 miles an hour at times. So obviously the visibility issues and especially high-profile vehicles, road issues on east-west roads. The Lubbock International Airport, Interstate 27 running north to south between Amarillo and Lubbock, and then Texas Tech University were all closed on that Monday the 25th. But kind of a silver lining to all this, Lubbock and much of West Texas and the South Plains were in the midst of a prolonged drought at that point in early 2013 there. So at least some of that moisture that did accrue from the snowfall helped to help farmers a little bit heading into the spring season there. So a little good that did come out of it there. Staff impacts weren't overly seen on this event. The Lubbock International Airport, just north and east of the forecast office, recorded 3.4 inches of snow. And most of that happened while the day shift that day was on shift, and weren't really any large impacts in terms of people having the staff staying over. Just larger impacts during the height of the storm as those 70 mile an hour wind gusts were coming through and the heaviest snow was occurring. And that's in stark contrast to the Christmas weekend blizzard that occurred back in 2015. And just wanted to talk about this a second. Had about 11.2 inches, so just shy of a foot there at Lubbock International Airport. And just to show that blizzards, while rare, aren't out of the realm of possibility, having the two there within that 3-year period. And then the other thing that the staff had to focus on were actually had some severe thunderstorms early on before the snow really got going. So we had a decent broken line that developed out across the rolling plains. Actually a report of some half-dollar size hail, and then a couple of reports of quarter-size hail as well. So that kind of took away maybe some of the direct focus right on the snow and the wind. But fortunately, more than ample and seasoned staff to take care of all that there in the office. And a few more, kind of going to tie this in, the staff lessons to learn to what I picked up on this, just having been a general forecaster for 5 or 6 months at this point. But as you're really far out in advance, say 5 to 7 days, trying to use more of the larger range or in excess of when you're talking about a winter weather forecast, especially snow amounts, as the general public's going to stick to and remember that largest number that you say. Once it's out there, you can't retract it. And then, of course, when anyone hears the term blizzard, especially farther southern latitudes, that starts to cause panic and wreak havoc. And we all know the milk, bread, and eggs quota that goes along with that in winter weather, and just kind of exacerbates farther south in the country. Drifts, very difficult to forecast. This is something I had never really had experience with at this point. And something that Steve Cobb there, and several forecasters talked about in a winter meeting heading into the next winter. Kind of as a first guess, you triple or even quadruple at times your maximum snowfall amount, kind of as a starting point to what kind of drifts you're going to see. So see there, if you're expecting around 10 inches, you could roughly first guess 3-foot drifts when you're getting winds of this magnitude. And really one of the big takeaway points for me and things I want to drive home is the fact that you have to keep the real-time data in check. Now, coming along, having been fresh out of school in the intern realm at that point, kind of been steered a lot toward model guidance and that, but really got this cemented in my head here that models are only guidance. So as we'll look at here, there were several problems. If we would have trusted the model solely on this event, wouldn't have had the blizzard warning down into Lubbock, into the city there that did end up verifying here. So if you're going to build expertise as a forecaster and make yourself better, really keeping this in mind, especially as we head into kind of the more blended model and guidance type era here. So this figure here, it's not from the event itself, it's more of a conceptual model, and that red star right beneath Interstate 27, that's where Lubbock's roughly located. But this is kind of more of a model I had been taught by several of the seasoned forecasters in Lubbock, that if you're going to get high impact or say 4-inch winter storm warning criteria type snow, you've got to have that 500 millibar upper level low ejecting out of the Rockies somewhere in the vicinity of the Interstate 40 down to the Interstate 20 corridor. And Interstate 40 runs right here through Amarillo and the Texas Panhandle, and Interstate 20 goes through Midland, Odessa, and kind of down into the Trans-Pecos area of far west Texas there. So as we'll we'll look here, stepping forward back to data from this event itself. This is late in the afternoon on the Sunday, February 24th, so the storm's starting to ramp up in the mid and upper levels. And we're looking at water vapor imagery here. You can see our upper level low really dug pretty far south across the desert southwest and kind of coming out of the Four Corners region at this point and starting to see the eastern flank of that move into western Texas panhandle. So this is really the product of real-time data again that steered me toward wanting to extend a blizzard warning south. We had one on the midnight shift when I came in on the day shift on the Sunday the 24th, and I had to decide to make that decision to drop it a row of counties south and to include Lubbock, as the models just weren't picking up on that upper level low digging as far south as it was. So kind of tying into that, that's more of a typical thing I learned having never worked in the plains or in the western United States. I'm originally from Cincinnati and had been basically on the East Coast all of my life and early career. So I really learned at this point, and it helped me the next several years in Lubbock. The southwestern U.S. lows aren't picked up on as great in the models in terms of digging and intensification when they take on that southerly track. And then, of course, as they do so, going to be more favorable to get deformation-type snow bands across West Texas. Whereas if you get those upper lows to steer farther north, usually the cold air is just not entrenched far enough south. And then, conversely, if the low is too far south, really not going to get the great amount of lift you would otherwise. So really where this shined light on me and really being the first major winter weather event I had worked, talked with a very well-experienced lead forecaster I was on shift with that day. And he, after discussing with him and looking at model guidance, water vapor, and the works all morning, decided to let me make the decision to expand that blizzard warning south. And this last row here of orangish red counties, Lubbock's right here, and we extended that south there to include that row on the day shift. And it immediately started to cause impacts in terms of phone calls and whatnot coming into the office. And really just at that point, I thought I had learned a lot in talking with him and kind of learning the local regime, pattern recognition, making a decision like this. But, another slew of impacts here we'll talk about really highlighted this for me. So I really started to think about more road impacts, how it was going to affect people, the public, and our partners and whatnot. So talking more blowing, drifting snow. As I mentioned, we only had the 3.4 inches of snow. May not sound like a lot, but again, when you're getting 3 foot plus drifts, really starts to be bigger impact there, especially with it being a work and school day there in February. And then thinking about just the messaging to me, I had never really thought about all realms of it in terms of what to stress and how to do so. So you've got all these mediums here, from social media now becoming more prevalent to NWS chat and then email and briefing packages going out, and really kind of learning there from forecasters in the office and working this event what kind of information needs to go to each one of these type users we do serve. And then that conceptual model we talked about there, that really cemented this in my mind for my remaining 2.5 or so years when I was out in Lubbock. But again, the upper lows not usually being picked up on as well in the southwestern U.S. in terms of digging and intensification. And then SIPS analog guidance from St. Louis University. Had never really looked into those at this point either, but for more outlier, kind of pushing anomalous events, started looking at these, and then this is something I still utilize today and talk with forecasters in Jackson here when we're looking at a more significant type event. And then just the overall value of talking with your forecast partner that day, so especially more experienced forecasters. I hope it's something as I continue to grow and learn, even as a lead forecaster now, that I can be looked to in terms of advice. situations like these and day-to-day events. So really that value of working as a team and not just solo on your own. So here we're going to step through some of the data and just kind of look how this event played out here, and then I'm going to finish off by tying it in the main takeaways and drive-aways I got out of this again. So our 500 millibar upper low, this is analysis from the Storm Prediction Center's upper level maps there. And this is right about 45 minutes after that water vapor image we looked at earlier. So this is that Sunday evening. And you see that upper low well cemented there across kind of the Four Corners region pushing east across portions of the desert southwest there. And then stepping forward here to mid-morning, that Monday morning, the 25th. And if we look up here, this is Lubbock's International Airport's observation. You see here we've got heavy snow. It's a little tough by the wind barbs and that to depict here, but the visibility is a quarter mile. And then you see winds sustained at 20 knots. If you go further north into Amarillo there, you've got 45 knot gusts and 40 to 45 knot gusts extending up the high plains there toward the Oklahoma Panhandle and even into western Kansas there on the high plains. And then radar imagery, just a general mosaic from early that morning. You see the snow again largely entrenched across much of West Texas, but a pretty good cutoff as we'll look at amounts here in just a few minutes. But across from Lubbock in the South Plains, further south into the Permian Basin, Midland, and Odessa's forecast area. And then you see some of the remnants out across central Oklahoma with a kind of a broken type trailing line at that point along the cold front down across portions of central and northern and central Texas. And stepping through to that early afternoon, again you can see what a dynamic system this was with the line of storms out across the Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas-Oklahoma border, and then again the deformation and wraparound snow continuing across much of West Texas that afternoon there. And then this is about 4.5 hours of METAR observations, so about 15Z here to 1930Z, and just wanted to highlight the columns here to focus on here in this light green. You see for this 4-hour period, of course, a blizzard being frequent gust or sustained winds of 35 miles an hour or greater. Certainly had that for this 4.5 hour period, even some gusts upward of 50 to 51 knots. Visibility throughout this whole time at the Lubbock International Airport was a quarter to an eighth to a quarter of a mile. So well below that, at or below that visibility threshold for a blizzard, and then obviously snow in the remarks there, extending through that entire time, along with blowing snow much of the time. And snowfall map here showing totals, and again, want to highlight that sharp cutoff, just how dynamic these systems can be out of the lee of the Rockies. But again, really learning that conceptual model for me at that point, if you didn't get that digging far enough south, that Lubbock wouldn't have got the snow amounts they even did. But looking here, the highlight in terms of amounts, really up in the Panhandle, Amarillo recorded about 19 inches, and down into Tulia, which is the northern row of counties here, northern extent of Lubbock's forecast area, had 15 inches, and then still had that 8-inch swath down into northwestern Lubbock County, which is the city of Lubbock, obviously in it as well, and then down toward the airport right about here, at 3.4-inch mark, with just an inch or less you got further south into portions of the Permian Basin and south of the South Plains there. And then just kind of a neat image highlighting the snow amounts. This is the day after, so it was clear, high pressure moved overhead. You can see this MODIS high resolution visible imagery showing that swath of snow. And you see the sharp cutoff of Lubbock being right here. Really not a lot left after compacting and probably blowing around a lot that next morning there. And then pretty neat to even see some outline of the Caprock Escarpment there and Paladero Canyon coming east and south of Amarillo and northeast of Lubbock. I'm going to wrap up here with the main takeaways. For me, being, again, a general forecaster at this point for about 5 months, really led to considerable growth and really helped build my confidence and help me in terms, and especially in terms of winter weather. I never worked a winter weather event like this with as high impact of a warning for a city. And Lubbock's pushing about 250,000 people, just shy of that 240 some thousand. So certainly large impact, and felt that in terms of phone calls and whatnot coming into the office that day, and the media outlets conveying it well. And then really a few other things this taught me, again, driving home that point of keeping reality in check. So you've got to use and look at the real-time data, satellite, water vapor especially in this case, serve to lead to an accurate forecast. So again, understanding discrepancies and biases in the models and using them for what they are as guidance. And then knowing when you do hit that button, send out the warning there, that you're going to have talking points for multiple types of partners, users, and the public. And then, again, focus on the impacts such as this. So say it wasn't really the high snow amounts, but it was more the visibility and high wind gusts that were concerning with this particular event. Down into the city of Lubbock, at least that was. And then just keeping in mind, too, when you do put out that highest number in a snowfall forecast, that you're not going to be able to take that back in just the general human mind. Once it's there, it sticks. So, again, kind of a best practice at the office, and something even we utilize, and I feel like we do here at Jackson too, kind of looking at ranges far out, or kind of maybe looking at that in excess of type wording instead of sticking to one higher particular number there in terms of snowfall. So hope everyone shed some light there on how this kind of brought to fruition for me as a forecaster to really gain confidence and hopefully continue learning here as a lead forecaster now for just over a year in Jackson. And fortunately did have one, or unfortunately, however you look at it, did have one high impact winter weather event about a week or two after I arrived last January. We had about 1.5 feet of snow here at the office. So this event out in Lubbock certainly served to help me out well as a forecaster for winter weather. So just want to thank everybody for attending, and feel free to field any questions from anybody.